Is Bill Belichick going to be the next head coach of the Washington Commanders? According to Dan Orlovsky, he's already made up his mind where he's going next. Could it be the Washington Commanders? I'll be discussing that on today's edition of the Commanders Report, where also I'm going to be breaking down my top 5 list of the top Ron Rivera replacements if the Commanders end up firing their head coach. I got some very juicy names on today's list, so make sure you guys stick around. But before we get into today's news and rumors, do me a favor, click that subscribe button, join our family. If the Commanders end up firing Ron Rivera, we're going to have you covered with a breaking news video. And then when they hire the new coach, we're going to be right back here with another video. So make sure you click that subscribe button for all the latest Commanders news and rumors throughout the 2023 season. With that, let's get into today's show. According to Dan Orlovsky, NFL analyst for ESPN, he went on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week. He said that current New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest head coach in the history of the National Football League, is likely going to get fired from the Patriots and that he's already lined up his next job to be the head coach and GM of another franchise. This is what Dan had to say on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week. I've heard that Belichick's next destination is kind of determined. I've heard more and more of that over the past week. I'm not a reporter, all that stuff, but I have heard that. I have heard that's going to be the case. Who knows the likelihood of it, but I've heard that's going to happen, and I've heard the location has kind of been determined as well. So right now, the speculation is that it's either the Washington Commanders or the Las Vegas Raiders, because the Raiders, of course, had just fired their head coach, Josh McDaniels, and then also the Washington Commanders have a new ownership group that might be looking to find their guy at the head coaching position, and that guy could very well be Bill Belichick. So these are kind of the two favorites to be that one team that he has already predetermined to want to go and be their next head coach and GM. And you know what? I really do think that this could be Washington. Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, and this new ownership group here in the nation's capital, they don't owe Ron Rivera anything. And it's very possible that they have been doing their due diligence on head coaches around this league before they even fire him. And I can tell you this right now, man, if Ron Rivera ends up losing this football game this week against the New York Giants and Tommy DeVito, his ass is grass, all right? He is gone. And I really would be open to Bill Belichick being the option for the Washington Commanders moving forward. I think he's still a great head coach. I think that he's still somebody that's a great defensive mind. People forget that he really carried Tom Brady in the early years of Brady's career. A lot of people say now because the Patriots stink that, oh, it was all Brady. Belichick had nothing to do with it. That is so just short-sighted and false at this point, because you look at that Rams Super Bowl. Who won that game? It was the defense and Bill Belichick completely schooling Sean McVay and Jared Goff, right? The first 2 Super Bowls, Tom Brady was not an MVP or even a high-caliber quarterback at that point. It was the defense that carried them to those Super Bowl titles. So I still think Bill Belichick's a great head coach. However, if he's going to become here, I don't want him to be the GM, because I think he's one of, if not the worst GM in the National Football League. Just look at the way that he has constructed that Patriots roster there in New England. It is such a roster just completely bereft of talent at this point. And also, I just think that it's really tough for head coaches in the National Football League to handle both the team aspect and the front office aspect. I think there's just too much on a person's plate. And even a guy like Belichick, who lives and breathes football, I just don't think one individual can do both of those jobs effectively. If he comes to the Washington Commanders, I want Washington to go and get a separate GM to partner with him instead of giving Belichick the keys to both the front office and to the coach's whistle. Now, if you're in charge here of the Washington Commanders, what would you do? Would you hire Bill Belichick as the head coach / GM? All right, are you giving him both titles here to come to Washington? Type H if you're going to hire him, or type P if you're going to pass on him. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. So now let's get into my top 5 Ron Rivera replacements while we're on the subject here. And you know, when I look at potential head coaching candidates, I'm looking for 2 very specific things when it comes to the next head coach of the Washington Commanders. Number one, and most importantly, you need to be able to command the respect of an NFL locker room and be a true culture setter. I mean, we look at guys like Mike Tomlin with the Pittsburgh Steelers or Dan Campbell with the Detroit Lions. If you can get your players to buy into your system, that is the main job of an NFL head coach, is to really command the respect of the locker room and get the guys to buy into what you're selling. All right, so that's number one on my list. Number two, I'm not going to limit this list to just offensive coaches. There's certain teams, like if you're about to draft a new quarterback, for example, I would want an offensive head coach. But because you have Sam Howell, I think that he's really ready to go right now. I think you can afford to go get a defensive head coach if you think he's the right man for the job and has connections to other great offensive minds to be their offensive coordinator. So with that in mind, let's get into my list here, starting with number 5. And this one might surprise some people. I might take a little bit of flack for this down in the comments, but I really like Patrick Graham as a head coach. He's the defensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. And you might be telling me right now, Jack, the Raiders defense has stunk over the last couple of years under Patrick Graham. And guess what? You would actually be right about that. But you look at the roster that he's had to work with there. I mean, it's like nothing. He's got peanuts to work with there in Las Vegas, and he's turned Robert Spillane into a legitimate number one inside linebacker. Max Crosby under his tutelage has become a top 10, arguably top 5 edge rusher in football. And what I really like about Patrick Graham's philosophy is that he really does a good job mixing things up. He really tailors his defenses and his schemes to the personnel that he has. He's not really held captive by a specific scheme like other defensive coaches around the league. I think he's among the brightest defensive minds in football. I think he would be an excellent leader, and I'd love to see him get an opportunity to be a head coach in this league. Now, coming up here, I got more Ron Rivera replacements. My top 4 is coming up here in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about our sponsor today, Game Time. And let me tell you, man, this is the only ticketing app that I have on my phone right now. I used to be somebody that had a bunch of ticketing apps that I would compare prices trying to get the lowest price. But with Game Time, it has completely solved that problem for me because they got the lowest price guarantee, so I don't have to worry about getting the lowest price. I know I'm going to find it on Game Time. Then also they got flash deals right before the event. So if you're someone like me, likes to get tickets last minute for like MLB baseball games, NHL hockey games, maybe NBA basketball games, concerts, all these different things, you can get last minute tickets at the lowest price. And let me tell you, man, this app is super easy to use. It's definitely better than any other ticketing app that I have used personally. And it's also the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seats before you buy them so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive as well. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are also sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through that pesky email ever again to get your tickets. Snag those tickets without the stress with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code NFLChat. That's one word, all caps, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code NFLChat. One word, all caps, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So number 4 on my list, another defensive guy here, defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, Dan Quinn. And listen, the Cowboys lost Trayvon Diggs for this season. I mean, that is a true number 1 lockdown corner. They're losing for the year, and this defense really hasn't missed a beat that much. They've really done a nice job this season kind of rebounding from that really big blow to their secondary. And Dan Quinn, for years at this point, has been one of the brightest defensive minds in football. He got a team to the Super Bowl before with the Atlanta Falcons. Things definitely deteriorated there in Atlanta during his tenure there, but he's definitely somebody that can command a locker room. He's definitely shown that he still has the defensive chops to be a great defensive coordinator and play caller in this league. And I think he'd be an excellent fit here in Washington. Then also number 3, let's get back to Billy B here. Bill Belichick as my number 3. I don't want him as the GM, so if it's dependent on him coming and being the GM of this team, I am not signing on to that. But in terms of true head coach candidates, it's hard to get better, especially on the defensive side of the football, than Bill Belichick, like Patrick Graham, like Dan Quinn. He really does a good job tailoring his defense to what his personnel and what their strengths are, right? He likes to play with lots of safeties, lots of cover one, likes to mix things up, likes to blitz, especially young quarterbacks. He's still somebody that can command a locker room, in my opinion. He might be a little bit old school, but I think he's definitely somebody that could be a head coach and a damn good one, an elite one, here in the National Football League. Now, you tell me, down there in the comments section. Would you rather have an offensive or defensive head coach? My top 2 on my list are offensive guys. I'm going to be revealing those here in just a second. But let me know, would you rather have an offensive head coach or a defensive head coach? Put O or D down there in the comments section. Number 2 on my list, and this guy should be at the top of pretty much every team's list this offseason, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. I mean, the way that he has completely transformed not only the Lions offense, but Jared Goff's career is absolutely remarkable. If I'm going to trust anybody with the development of Sam Howell over the next couple of seasons, it's going to be Ben Johnson, man. This guy's a straight-up offensive genius. I already consider him a top 5, borderline top 10, borderline top 5 offensive play caller in the National Football League today, and the Commanders would certainly be lucky to add him as their head coach. But you know what? I know I'm going to get some flack for this right now, but I'm going to go with Eric Bieniemy as my number 1 Ron Rivera replacement. I think this guy deserves an opportunity to be the head coach of the Washington Commanders in the National Football League. This guy has put in his dues. He has been dealt a 5th-year quarterback in his 2nd year that only had 1 start and turned him into a bona fide franchise quarterback. He was dealt one of, if not the worst offensive line in the history of the NFL. And this offense, and especially this passing offense, is definitely the best thing about this Washington Commanders football team here in 2023. I think he already commands the respect of the players in the locker room. I think that his kind of old school rough-nosed approach to coaching football has really rubbed off on this Commanders team, and the offense has been better for it. And then also, Sam Howell is already massively comfortable in this offense. Why would we change things when Sam Howell is looking damn good in this current system? I think Eric Bieniemy's system really works with Sam Howell's skill set, and I want to see Howell grow within this offense instead of giving him a whole new playbook. Now, my one condition here for keeping Bieniemy is I want him to really have the freedom to get his people in the building. I want to get rid of Jack Del Rio as the defensive coordinator. I want him to cut bait with any coaches he feels are not fit to be a part of this organization and go get his guys, truly make this his own building, his own administration, and really usher in this new era of Washington Commanders football. Now, honorable mentions here that I want to mention, because these are all, I would be happy with any of these guys if I'm being completely honest with you, but this is a top 5 list, not a top 10 list. So Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator of the Texans, has been absolutely fantastic this year. Super sound architecturally is his offense. Really good stuff. Has really done a great job with rookie C.J. Stroud. Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator of the Dolphins. Obviously, the Dolphins have a crazy offense. Getting their offensive coordinator would be huge. Chris Forrester, run game coordinator / O-line coach for the 49ers would be a big one because it could help develop this new offensive line for the Commanders. Shane Waldron and Brian Flores are also names to watch out for. Brian Flores, for me, with the cover 0 stuff that he runs, not sure it fits with the skill set of Emmanuel Forbes, who you want to be your number 1 corner moving forward. So that's why he didn't make my list. But overall, man, if you get Brian Flores, I'm definitely not going to complain. Now, shout your guy out down in the comment section. Who do you want to see as the next head coach of the Washington Commanders? Was it somebody on my list? Did I miss somebody? Let me know down there in the comments. Can't wait to see who you want as the next Commanders head coach. That'll be it for today's show, Commanders fans. Thank you so much for all of your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button right now for more Commanders news and rumors coverage as we approach this Giants game here in Week 11.